Welcome to No Compromises, a peek into the mind of two old web devs who have seen some things. This is Joel.
And this is Aaron. So in general, I know there is this concept on the internet of caching things, right? And basically that means like keep a copy of it, I guess, and just serve that copy again instead of getting the real one. But I'm going to play a little bit of a dummy here, a little bit of a devil's advocate, Joel, and I'm going to pretend like I don't actually know much about caching.
Okay.
Because I think I'm going to ask you these questions because it's going to lead us through an interesting cache arc, a story arc through all the tools that we have available inside of Laravel. So in general, if I were to say to you, I think I need caching, my website is slow.
Okay.
What was the type of questions you'd ask me about first to kind of figure out why I'm even bringing that up?
I would say like what's slow. That's right. Like,
Yeah.
is it a particular page? Is it the site as a whole? Is it like this one, I'm just e-commerce site. It's like this one product takes forever to load, but like all the other ones load fine. Like I would definitely start like what's slow and what's the pattern for when it's slow.
Okay. So let's just say then that I'm going to skip a lot of the part of the conversations just to make this a shorter podcast.
Okay.
We've went down the route. We're going to splinter off one direction and be like, we've determined that it's just every single page is really slow. It's mainly like an HTML website, but it's loading stuff from the database. But every single page is just really slow, and it's third-party resources it's loading that are slow. Something is it's just so slow all in general.
And we can't. It's dynamic enough that we can't reasonably do like Cloudflare or something in front of it and just try to solve it that way.
Well, that might be the first step. So what does that mean?
Okay, so yeah, I guess the technical term for that would be like edge caching, where you put a proxy server, and in this case, I'm going to say Cloudflare because the free tier is pretty generous and it's easy to turn it on, but it sits in between you and you as like the server and your users. And so Cloudflare, let's say you have an image heavy site, it would keep a copy of all those images on its edge servers all around the world. They have them everywhere. And then if a second person in that region requests it, it doesn't even hit your server. It would just pull it from Cloudflare, and it should theoretically be faster because it's closer to them and your server's not being involved. So that's my high level explanation of edge caching.
Perfect.
Oh.
So I think I understand that.
Okay.
It's basically you look at my whole site and it makes a copy and it serves it to me closer. Now that's fine. But you mentioned, if it's not too dynamic. Well, everything on my site now, let's just splinter a different direction, is it's mainly it can be cached, but there are some dynamic things. But when I say dynamic, I mean I hit a third-party API on every page load here to get some information, but I know that information only changes once a day.
Okay.
But I have to wait 4 or 5 seconds for that API load each time. And obviously, that's not okay. Because does caching help me there?
Yes, Aaron, it does. Yeah, so this is like I would say the much more granular, like inside the code. Now we're talking about using the cache facade in Laravel or something like that, where you've identified a particular operation in your code that's slow. Like you mentioned a third-party API call, and you also have clarified a certain level of freshness of that data is okay. Let's take an extreme example. I really only need to get this data once every 24 hours. And so instead of like all 10,000 people that hit my site resulting in 10,000 calls, I could call them one time, and then I could cache that result and store it and serve it to the other 9,999 visitors.
Using something like the cache facade or something inside of Laravel, right? That's kind of what you're referring to, is it has this first party facade that you can work cache. Okay, that makes sense. But I've been told by senior developers in the past that people reach for caching too often. So why did you talk about caching there if it's only once a day? Why not just run a job and put that in a database and retrieve that?
So proactively decide I'm going to need this data at some point today. So I'm going to go get it.
Yeah, why make the first person wait 5 seconds?
No, I don't like that person, but I don't. I mean, I guess you could, but to me, it feels a little weird because, like, with caching, you have a concept of cache invalidation where like you can push a button and clear it out, and then it will automatically refresh it. You also have concepts of cache warming where you don't have to make that person wait. Um, I don't have a strong reason. Maybe you have one you want to talk about why not doing it in a job. It just feels weird. It feels like using a knife to open instead of a screwdriver. It's like, yeah, it works, but it doesn't feel like the right tool.
Yeah, but if you talk about things like cache warming, you have to run a job anyway. You can't warm a cache before someone hits it.
Yeah.
So that mechanics is out the door. I'm
Okay.
just talking about more so that caching doesn't necessarily mean using the cache facade.
Sure.
Because remember, we talked about caching. First of all, caching was Cloudflare.
Yeah.
Then caching is the named cache facade. Caching could also mean capturing data and serving it a different way that is
Yeah.
not necessarily inside of that cache facade. It could be, every midnight or every 2 a.m. we get new results. They go in here, and then that SQL table is actually part of a query that we do somewhere else. So maybe it wouldn't be great if it was in the actual Redis cache or something because I can't join against it.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Caching is a more general term and strategy. It's not just that one specific thing that you'll find if you go to Laravel docs and type caching.
Yeah. So that covers like from the outside, it covers a third party API, it covers the database queries and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, what about caching? And I don't know how to describe this, but like something that's really complex to solve, some really complex programming, a function that takes a long time to run, and there's no it just takes that long to run, and maybe I need it a couple times. What do I do with that? Like I don't know if there's an output there. It just needs to do something over and over.
It would this be something like when you were describing that, I'm thinking of like a really expensive report that aggregates sales data across like a bunch of locations and sales categories and like it totals that up, right? But it's for Q1. And like if somebody comes behind you and generates it for Q1 30 minutes later, it should be the same data.
I'm saying you could go like that, but I'm saying more so like there's a complicated calculation that determines the workflow of this controller, and
Oh,
maybe that the results of that complicated calculation are used multiple times in the whole workflow.
oh, okay. So maybe this is like not between requests, but like within a single request, this thing will have to be calculated or loaded into memory, and like I only want to do that once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would consider that caching. Like, I mean, can I get out my computer science textbook and use the word memoization? But like in Laravel, we have a helper, a global helper called Once, that does what you're describing. Like that, yes, I
Mhm.
would consider that to be in the technique of caching as well.
And the reason you might reach for that instead of like, because right away when I thought like calculates it and it has to store it or whatever, I just thought, well, put it in a variable,
Mm,
whatever, bro, and use that later. But it could
yeah.
be that this is something that happens in the middleware to determine access. Then it's something that happens in the controller, and then maybe it's something that happens inside of a repository. So it could happen multiple times, and trying to pass that variable result around might not be as easy as just calling that same function again. But since that function is memoized, it will return it once, and you'll always get that same result.
Yeah, and maybe in that case, like actually sticking it in Redis or the database would be overkill. It's like it's literally just going
Yeah.
to live for this one user for the life of their one request.
Yeah, so I just wanted to cover like the points of caching because I think so many times people throw out, "Oh, but just cache that," or "My stuff's slow. I didn't caching it." So it was, yeah, but what does that actually mean? Is it the database? Is it the front end? Is it all these different combinations? Is it calculations, etc.? So I just wanted to walk through some layers of caching, and there's many more beyond this.
Sure.
There's individual pieces that we can cache too,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to make sure that was clear that when someone says cache, there's a lot more questions to be asked about it.
I'm probably a simple person, but like every once in a while, somebody will say something that just like sticks in my head and is like, whoa, like I just keep thinking about it way longer than I should. So the other day, we were talking about food, and my wife, I was talking about like sausage and pepperoni, and my wife just said, pepperoni is sausage. And I'm like, whoa, what? And I thought about it. It's like, yeah, if you ever see like a whole pepperoni, it's a sausage. It's just like cut up and sliced. So like if you're thinking pizza toppings, right? Like sausage is one shape, pepperoni is another shape, but like they're basically the same thing, correct?
I guess I don't eat pizza and I don't eat pork.
Oh no.
So I always knew.
Conceptually, though,
Well, I always knew it was how do you think it grows on trees in
I
a
don't
disc
know.
shape? Like, of course it's a sausage. I don't understand. This is what's wrong with you people that like eat pizza. You just don't expand your mind.
But so, despite my own simple-mindedness here, and like to this day, I'll just say to her, like, "Man, I'm still thinking about pepperoni and sausage." But it has helped me in one regard. So there's this weird negotiation we have. Again, you won't know this as a non-pizza eater, but like, well, what are we going to get on the pizza? And she always throws out this thing, well, we can't have two meats. Like, that's too much. Like, you can have two veggies, but like two meats is like too decadent. But now I'm like, well, pepperoni is sausage. So it's only one meat. If I want both pepperoni and sausage on the pizza, I win.
Oh, okay. You know, when you said things that stick in people's head when you say something,
Mm-hmm.
someone said something to me once that is not exactly the same thing, but I think about it a lot. They said to me, nice face. So I don't know. You just want to give us some cash?
Then head over to masterinlaravel.io and you can either give us some cash and buy a book or something, or learn about caching.